What is up, my sunlight samurais, my andronauts, you alpha energy males. In this video, we're going to talk about vaping on testosterone. A lot of people think that vaping is healthier, but it turns out it can also have an influence on your testosterone, fertility, and health. Let's dive in. This is the article that I wrote. The link will be in the description if you want to read it, check it out as in its whole. And so first of all, the trends in vaping, right, has quite skyrocketed here from 2011 going up. So this was 2019. So here during the pandemic, it soared even more. So the vaping trends are definitely increasing. People are vaping more. And the reason for this is because some people think it's safer than not smoking. They want to quit smoking, or the novelty aspect, or, just the flavors. They just like vaping. It's easy, it's very convenient, it's different than smoking, etc. So people like it. So let's look on the effects that vaping has on testosterone. So there are not really human studies on this yet, but there's an animal study showing that vaping can lower your testosterone. And there was a vaping without nicotine and a vaping with nicotine and no vaping. So you will see this is the enzymes, the steroidogenic enzymes. So this is the first one, the P450-SCC. So this is a side cleavage enzyme that converts cholesterol into pregnenolone, like the first step in creating a sex steroid. And this 11-beta-HSD is the one that converts androstenedione into testosterone. So vaping lowers both of these enzymes. So you will see that vaping with or without nicotine lowered the first enzyme about the same. And then the second enzyme without nicotine tended to lower it the most. And with nicotine increased a little bit. So some studies do show that nicotine, so regular smokers tend to have slightly higher levels of testosterone than non-smokers for some reason. So it might be that the nicotine could have a potentially beneficial effect on testosterone. But before everyone just pick up smoking, the increase is small. So some studies have found there's no increase, and other studies have found it's like a 50 nanograms per deciliter difference. So it's like a small difference, right? So don't expect I'm going to go crazy high testosterone by smoking. That's not what's going to happen. But it can lower your testosterone. The same thing, smoking can actually also lower your testosterone long term. So on the other one, there was a human study found that vaping wasn't associated with either higher or lower testosterone. And on the other hand, cigarette smokers tended to have slightly higher testosterone than non-smokers, as I mentioned. However, again, this is short term. What would happen if you smoke for 10 years, 20 years? These things aren't side effect free. They still cause oxidative stress and damage, can lead to Leydig cell damage, eventually lead to low levels of testosterone. We know that smoking for a long period of time damages the body, and so it will also damage Leydig cells, eventually leading to low levels of testosterone. Now, some people think that they can just quit smoking and switch over to vaping because it's not as toxic, and that might seem logical since conventional cigarettes and cigarette smoke contains over 700 items, of which 69 are known carcinogens, meaning they cause cancer and so on. So vaping supposedly has far less toxins, but vaping also contains a bunch of toxins. Many heavy metals and other, the flavorants in itself can cause damage and oxidative stress in the body. So you have got heavy metals like aluminium, arsenic, cadmium, chromium, copper, iron, manganese, nickel, lead, all of which is toxic. They cause oxidative stress and inflammation. They can accumulate, for example, in the pituitary and lower levels of your LH. And this is not just you're smoking, but if you're in a room, other people are smoking, you're getting the secondhand smoke. That can also start to lower your testosterone. So the reason why vaping is actually can be more dangerous than regular smoking is because it can be used indoors in more places than not, so you can smoke more. It can be used anywhere, anytime. You don't have to light it, you don't have to stand it, you can just smoke it, put it back in your pocket, smoke it, put it back in your pocket. It's so convenient. And you can get the effects faster than cigarettes. So it hits you, that gives you the hit faster than a cigarette. So all of these, ease of use, allows you to use it more frequently, become more addicted. And because you're vaping it more puffs per day compared to cigarettes, it catches up with you, all of those toxins and side effects. So I wouldn't say that vaping is necessarily a good way to stop smoking. It has its own downsides. Now, is, vaping nicotine a good way to get off of smoking? Because you want to slowly wane off of with the nicotine. But as I just mentioned, it's so easy to just abuse vaping with the nicotine. And oftentimes, some of these vapes, they contain 2.5 to 5% nicotine. So the more you smoke, you can actually get a massive amount of nicotine. So it's kind of like this double-edged sword. It's so easy to become more addicted to vaping at the end of the day. And it's the nicotine that contributes to eating. There's so many people that said that once they started smoking, vaping, they started to get ED. And it's only when they did like a hookup and stuff that they realized like, oh my gosh, I never had this problem and it's so embarrassing, I can't get them up, I can't perform. And this is because nicotine causes vasoconstriction and smokers. So when you smoke, it's that oxidative stress that causes damage to the vasculature, the smooth muscles of the penis. So this leads to ED. So it's not just the nicotine, but the nicotine does play a role, but also the smoking causing vascular inflammation contributing to ED. And then last but not least, in terms of fertility, there was a human study that looked at basically some non-smokers vaping and cigarettes, and it found that the vapors had lower levels of testosterone than even cigarette smokers. So not only can it potentially have an effect on your testosterone in the long term, it can lower your fertility and contribute to ED, and it's probably not a good way to quit smoking. So unless you can control how much you vape, right, and you actually start vaping less than you actually smoked, and you go for the nicotine-free vaping, maybe it's a decent alternative, but it can still cause oxidative stress in the body, and you really need to focus on consuming antioxidant-rich diet to negate the side effects of that smoke. Things like vitamin E, coenzyme Q10, vitamin C, these things, the antioxidants will help to protect against the oxidative stress from smoking, whether it be cigarettes or vaping. So just be cautious that when you vape, it's very easy to start to overdo it because it's so nice. So if you have an addictive propensity, you might become addicted to vaping because it's so convenient and it's like get that hit almost immediately. And even though it might not lower testosterone immediately, it can start to affect your erectile function, which is not good, and also your fertility. So if you plan to have children, maybe you really have to focus on an antioxidant-rich diet to prevent the side effects. Right, guys, I hope this was helpful. I'm not trying to necessarily shit on vaping. It's just you have to be careful of things to take in consideration here. All right, guys, hope this was helpful, and I will check you in the next one. Cheers.